Work hard for what you want in life.
You work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
That your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
That you treat people with respect.
Reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard.
The strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard. Work hard. Work hard.
Hey guys, I'm Tatum.
And it's your girl Milan.
And welcome to another episode because I don't know what this one is.
So now you don't know. Now you don't know.
It's like 26. I think it's like 30.
It is not 30.
I don't know. Welcome to another daggone episode of this podcast because I can't remember. But today we have a really special guest. Y'all hear me talk about Tish all the time. But a very, very special guest, my accountability partner, my friend, my self-care guru, my just voice of reason, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. So we want to welcome Latisha Carr to the podcast.
Hey, everybody.
We're so excited to have you. So I was telling her before we hit record that I really didn't prepare any questions because I just kind of wanted to have a conversation about self-care. So let's just start from the beginning. So you have like a really awesome story, and you always talk about how you're new to sharing your story. So I'm going to make you do it again. So you can get your reps in, as you like to say.
Yeah, get your reps in.
But I really want you to tell us your story. Like, how did you get to this point now of being this life coach, this self-care expert? Everybody's coming to you for their self-care plans. You have this self-care series about to happen. Like, you just teaching the world how to live their best lives and love themselves and all that stuff. But I really want you to talk about your journey of baby Tish to woman Tish.
Oh man, so this is how long do you have? So my story really is long, to be honest, but to really start, I always let people know, like, I came from a household where my mother didn't raise me, but she was in my household. Mm-hmm. My grandmother raised me, and my grandmother always taught me, one, to be nice to people, and two, like, to really make sure that you live a life that you're happy with. Mm-hmm. My mom actually has schizophrenia, so I grew up in a household that was very, like, convoluted, for lack of a better term, like just really confusing all the time. So that took me on a journey of just kind of trying to figure things out. So when I went to college, I studied psychology. I went into my master's program I started in psychology and dropped out of that program and went into mental health counseling. And after that, I turned 25 right after, the next semester is how I was thinking about it in my head, but really it was no semester because I was done college, and that's how life works, right? Like, there's no semesters.
Right. It's no transition.
So I was like, oh, next semester. No, it wasn't the next semester. I turned 25 and I had this big meltdown. I was going through a lot of stuff. I had to move. Well, I didn't have to move back home. I just couldn't stay where I was in college. So I moved back home. That was stressful. It took me a long time to find a job. It was a really quarter life crisis, for real. So I was in the airport going to Vegas to visit my cousin for her birthday. And I was crying in the airport, just having this breakdown.
You're one of those.
No, and I'm not.
I walk past
you know what the crazy thing is? I never was that person until I turned 25. All of a sudden, I cry all the time, right? So I'm crying in the airport. I'm what is wrong with me? So I started, okay, I'm just going to start a blog. Where do you dream? And that has kind of been the catalyst for me really doing a lot of this stuff, because I started writing how I felt. I started writing my experience. I was really trying to just inspire myself to get out of this hole that I was in this dark spot. And from there, I just kind of started going to events and focusing on those kind of things. So flash forward to 2017, because I was 2014. I really had to focus last year in 2016 on myself. I was working in a job that was very, very stressful. I was working in mental health recovery. So remind you that my mom has schizophrenia. I was living at home with my mom who has schizophrenia and working in mental health with adults with severe mental health disorders and substance abuse disorders. I'm telling you, my story is long, so I'm trying to put it together. But So what happened was I was so burnt out. This was 2015, actually. I was so burnt out that I was like, I was ready to quit, but I didn't have no money to quit. So I had wrote up my letter and all of that kind of stuff. Went to my boss. They were like, they basically wouldn't let me quit. Mm-hmm. So I took 10 days off. And in that 10 days, I snuck away to the Dominican Republic with my cousin, the same cousin that I was going to Vegas with.
Shout out to your cousin.
She's a plug. But I snuck off to the Dominican Republic for like 5 days, came back for 5 days. So when I say I took 10 days off, I took 10 work days off, which really meant like 15 days off, including weekends. So I realized that I couldn't, when I got back to work, I'm like, you can't do that all the time. Like, you can't just be like, dropping out of life for 15 days. So I really had to start focusing on like how I could make my life feel better, even though I was in a circumstance that I wasn't really happy in. Like, how can I make it better? So I like kind of went hard on like the self-care thing at that point. I started like taking weekends to myself, like 1 week in a month, every single month. I would be like, the answer is no. I'm not hanging out with y'all. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. It's just Tish time, like Tish only time. I let that be very clear to my friends. And so they already knew, like, third weekend of the month, we're not even going to ask Tish. Like, that's her weekend. I had to start setting boundaries at work and saying, no, I will not answer your phone calls after 8 or 7 or whatever the time was, and those kind of things. So I really worked really hard on my own self-care at that point. 2016, I really got focused on becoming a life coach and like doing all those kind of things. And so that has been the culmination of where I'm at today. Again, it's a really long story. I have so much more to it, but it's kind of like this journey of figuring out who I am so that I can help other people. It's like the long story of it. Like, I had to really do a lot of work to figure out who I am as a person, my flaws, my strengths, my weaknesses, all of those kind of things, so that I can help other people live their best life too. So that is a lot about me.
That's such an amazing story. And
that was the short version.
That was the short version.
Girl, there's some real tea in there too I left out, but we'll save that for another time.
So I wanted to ask you, and you always like say this, and I always want to ask more questions about it, about how you spent last year really working on yourself. And I think that's something that is so important. You didn't spend a week, you didn't spend a couple months, you spent a whole 12 months, like a year.
No, literally.
These days, we can't even imagine what next year is going to look like, let alone spending a year to work on yourself. So what was that like? Because I can only imagine, like, I know we all have different stories, things we've gone through in our childhoods with our families and stuff like that. We all had something that we have to recover from, in my opinion. So what was that like for you to actually realize I need this to the day to day, like not giving up? Really 12 months is a long time to do something. Like, it really is.
It probably was actually longer than 12 months, honestly. I mean, I'm still working on myself, but really what it was is I had a conversation with a friend, and that really sparked my, like, you need to get your stuff together, because they noticed stuff about me that I thought only I could see. Like, you know that that's just how I am mindset. Like, I thought only I noticed it. But when someone called me out on it, that's when I was like, something sparked in my head. I will never forget. It was a conversation I had in February of 2016 that was like, oh, wow, I really need to like get focused. Like, what do you want to do? I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've known that for a long time. I've known that since I was at least in the 11th grade. So I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to be a life coach. And to be a life coach, like, you can't just be a mess yourself, right? Like, you have to get yourself together. So I actually sought out one of my sorors who is a life coach. I was going to hire her as my life coach. And what happened was she was like, you're a natural at this. Why don't you join this program? It's in San Diego. You got to go to San Diego 6 times this year. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to figure out how to do that, like money wise, but I'll make it work. So I decided to do that. I hired my business coach because I knew I wanted to do that. So I'm like, okay. So that's where it started. It started in February 2016. March, I was in this life coaching training program. And the thing about that program I really loved was that it was all about your own personal transformation, as well as learning about the business of life coaching. But it was a lot about your transformation. And the very first day, we had to stand up in front of the room and just stand there. They would ask us questions. We had to tell a little bit about ourselves and things like that. And I struggled so much with that. Like, it was so hard for me to just say who I was and what I did without, like, you know, you do like an awkward giggle or something when you're like uncomfortable or like swaying and like, so I realized then they called me out on it because it was a transformation program. They're like, so they, you know, the whole point was like kind of seeing who the essence of you, who you really are. And that mine wasn't really showing through. Like I thought people could see who I really was. And that moment is, so March of 2016 is really when I realized like, okay, you got a lot of work to do, sis. Like you really got to get this together. So I worked with my life coach and was in that program all of 2016. And so from March to this past February, worked with her and like really dug deep into who I am and like what my stops are. Like I know about myself. I always joke with Tatum, like I know for me, if something seems really hard, and I can't figure out a way to make it easy in my mind, I will avoid it like the plague. But it took me last year to figure out that about myself. I was like just quitting stuff and not realizing why I was quitting. Right. Yeah, it's like, oh, I just don't want to do that anymore, right? But that wasn't it. It was like when things were perceived difficult, I would just, you know, avoid it. So that's kind of like, it was a lot of that, like really digging deep into who I was and like, where did this come from? Like, where did you build this story about yourself? You know, and most of us build these stories about ourselves and who we are from like 6 years old, probably. Like somewhere around 5 or 6, we kind of, something usually happens to us around that age where it's like that kind of is the building block of who we become as a person. But it's not okay to keep going, oh, that's just who I am. Like, I'm 28 years old now. Like, you can't keep saying that's just who I am. It's like, you need to grow up. And you know, I love Jay-Z. That's why I love this album, this new album. Yes. But that's why I love this album because that he just put out because it's telling people to grow up. Like, you can't keep using this. That's how I grew up. That's my hood. That's this, that's just how I am. Like, no, you have to first acknowledge who you are as a person and then find ways to grow. And so that's what I did all last year. And I'm not that, you know, after the 12 months, it just stopped. So it's probably been like 18 months of this like really like personal development, personal like growth and just finding who I am as a person and fixing, I shouldn't say fix, but like growing into a better person and like leaving some of that stuff that doesn't serve me anymore. Like some of those behaviors probably serve me up until a point, but now they don't do anything for me. So, so that's what that was. So I know y'all are young and that quarter life crisis is going to hit y'all because it happens to everybody. So this is my quick advice to y'all.
No, I don't see myself.
I'm not going to speak it over your life. I'm not going to
see myself having a quarter life crisis.
I'm not going to speak it over your life, but there's going to come a time where you're going to be like, whoa, like who am I? Like all of a sudden you're going to get really introspective about who I am and what I need.
But I think I'm so self-critical, and this is a good and a bad thing. I'm so self-critical that introspection happens like every week. Like
that's good.
If I don't,
you're
like,
probably in your crisis. Don't
If I don't look back at like my month or week to notice what I actually did right, I would think I'm such a failure. Like that's how like I am hard on myself.
See,
like
there's that. That's just how I am thing.
No, but that's me working. But I recognize it so I can work on it. So that's why I try to be intentional about like, you know, what are some things you did right. I was telling y'all, I was telling Tish and Tiana that last week I had sat down and I was writing down like, you know, what I like about myself. Just preparing for this quarter, it was like, okay, what do I like about myself? What don't I like about myself? How can I work on those things I don't like? And those turn into my personal goals for the quarter. And I do the same thing for business. What do I like that's going on in business right now? What don't I like that's going on in business? How can I change that? And then those become goals, you know, in addition to the revenue goals and all of that, just goals to make sure that things are constantly on an up and up and everything just doesn't go to trash and you like, yo, what happened? You know, when you could have recognized that a long time ago. But
you're ahead of the game. That's what that is.
I'm trying.
Every other day, like you said, like I feel like I'm punching myself, like, oh no. And I just grabbed the list the other day when I came from the event, and I was so frustrated. I think I was mad about the whole situation that it had anyway. So I grabbed my little notepad and I put personal development down, and I just started writing different things under personal development, and then I went, of course, under brand development. But the key thing was that personal first. So I did do that the other day. So you're right. It's like you do have self-checking points.
Yeah.
We probably are in our quarter crisis. And
y'all are working through it. It doesn't have to be a big meltdown. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you don't have to be in the airport crying. That was just me. I just needed to cry. That's one of the things I needed to work on. I had to start expressing my emotions. Right?
It's okay to cry.
Right, it is okay. It really is okay to cry. But up until that point, I don't think I had cried. My grandma had passed away like a couple years before, and like I don't think I had really cried since then. So I was like, what is happening? But so it doesn't have to be this big like, you know, everything's falling apart kind of thing. That's just my story. But for some people, it's more like you just have to really figure out, like you said, like, why am I so upset about this one thing that happened? What is it? Or why can't I why can't I get moving on this one particular goal? You know, we always have that one goal that we just procrastinate. Like, what is stopping you from getting over that hump? There's usually something like in our way blocking us. So I think y'all are just doing the work. Y'all just don't even know. Y'all are like in it. And personal development is like what happens when you turn like between like 23 and like 29 probably. I don't know. I'm not there yet. But it's like all you like focusing on personal development is so important because think about how far y'all are going to be when y'all turn 30 or 40 and y'all already did that work, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's a part of self-care too. You know, that personal development. Because something else that I did last week was I didn't text too many people. I think I texted y'all and I texted my business coach. And I was like, you know, what are some strengths of mine that you see? Because now I have like a lot of pressure that I put on myself to get to certain places. So it's like, it's a mental battle every day. So I have to make sure I keep things in front of me that feed the positive and not the insecurities or not the negative. And so in asking y'all those things, like y'all spoke a lot of life into me that of stuff that I know that, but I don't even pay attention to because I'm so focused on where I'm trying to go. Because like Raven said something when I asked her, she was like, you know, one of your strengths to me is that you're constantly looking to outdo yourself. Like you're not in competition with anybody else, but you're always looking at ways to one up yourself. It's kind of, and it causes you to keep elevating because you're competing with the person in the mirror. And I was like, that's crazy because to me it's so critical, but that also contributes to my greatness because I'm not worried about what everybody else is doing. I see what Tatum is doing. I'm like, Tatum's slacking right here. I could beat her in that. And that allows me to keep leveling up.
And I was just about to make a comment on that when you said you're chapter 3 to somebody's chapter 30.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking at somebody's chapter 30 and you're in chapter 3, but are you in that personal development, that self-care? Have you taken that? Because clearly they're in chapter 30. They probably have done all the self-care, the personal development that it takes to get there. Hopefully, right? But you're looking at them not knowing if they went through that or not. But that's the battle with yourself that you have to work in first. So I'm really glad you said that, Tay.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, like, so I know the conversation about self-care kind of gets like, oh, get your nails done and that kind of stuff. But really self-care is about being nice to yourself. And so whatever that means for you, like, how are you being nice to yourself? So sometimes it's texting people and asking people to say nice things to you, right? Like, can you tell me something nice about me? Because you're right. But for real, because we get so in our heads about stuff, and we're so mean and self-critical to ourselves. So like sometimes you just need somebody from the outside, like, and I know that might not sound like your typical self-care, but like sometimes you just need to text someone and say, what are my strengths? Do you think I'm pretty? Whatever. But it's having people tell you those things because we can be so mean to ourselves. And for me, I believe self-care is just being nice to yourself. And it can be that simple, like be nice to yourself, whatever that means, whether it's like going to go do something for yourself or having a nice conversation with yourself, like being really nice. Like today, I'm going to look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful, I am whole, I am healthy, I'm, fabulous, whatever. And like continue to say that to yourself all day long. Like changing that negative self-talk can be really, really powerful self-care as well.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one who goes through this, but it feels like when I'm on my cycle is when I feel like the ugliest. I don't think I have any good ideas coming here. Like I'll be in the mirror and I'm doing my makeup and my eyebrows.
So that's every woman in America.
Everyone.
My eyebrows can be so flaky and I'm like, oh, that one hair, why are you doing that? And I'm like so angry. And it's like during that time, I think it's the best time to do self-care.
Right.
You are going through everything that you could possibly think of on your cycle.
Your whole insides are falling out. Like, what is going on in my life?
You just hit the ground. Everything is just wrong. You're just like, no, this is not it.
It's like for 4 days, 4 straight days of like that. And you're right. That's when you have to find something that'll be like, okay, and how can... For me, I had to buy ice cream the other day because I was like, I've been holding off on this for 3 days. You know what? I'm going to be nice to myself and I'm going to buy that Breyers today.
Yes. time to actually text people and have something.
No,
nice
yeah, for real.
There's nothing. You have nothing nice to say.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Especially those first 4 days, man.
Yes.
Maybe that's just my life.
In the same boat.
So I also want to ask you, Tess, what were those hard days like while you were working on yourself? Like those days where it was like, why am I even doing this? Because it's so easy to just stay angry. Like my pastor was talking about this in church today, and he was saying how like he went over to John 10:10 where it says that we're supposed to have life and live it abundantly. So he was saying that, and the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So he was saying that a lot of people, especially like old school Christians and Baptists, all that, they always focus on the devil comes to kill, steal, destroy, because you used to fighting, you used to struggling, you used to going through things to the point where it's not healthy, but it's familiar. But for you to take it a step further and be like, no, I'm going to live this life abundantly because this is what God says. So if I want my white Porsche Panorama, that's what I'm going to get. Or if I want my estate in the wilderness with a winery on the property, like that's what I want.
Okay,
you know,
winery. That came.
Right.
I might create my own wine and sell it. We don't know yet.
Yes, Black Girl Boss Wine.
BGB wine.
But you know, we don't. That's something that's kind of like, ooh, like you almost feel like you can't have that. So for the people who are used to struggling to where it's just like, this is just another thing that's happened to me. Oh, woe is me. It's always something. What were those times like where you were like really knee deep in that mindset, and how did you get out?
Okay, so last year was really hard. When you're working on yourself and you have to dig really deep into who you are, that's like the hardest thing to do. Like when you are really trying to grow, it's like you have to dig a really deep hole, plant that seed, and then grow. Like it's really, and then you have to break through it's like a lot. So one of the things I started doing last year, so I journal a lot anyway. I'm just like a person who likes to write my feelings out. So in those moments, I really started, this is how I started my template for like my self-care journal, was I started writing, what's my win for the day? Because no matter how hard or how crappy I feel or how hard it is to kind of really push through those feelings, you have to find something good for yourself. Like, what is your win for the day? Sometimes your win for the day is I woke up this morning and like the sun was shining, and that might have been like it, but other times it's like, you know what? I really was able to help somebody. So I was really able to connect with a client or something like that. So I was working in mental health still last year. And I would have my clients who, again, severe mental health disorders and substance abuse disorders. And they would say to me like, we really love you because blah, 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 blah. Like you understand us, you get us, and stuff like that would just make me feel good. So I would have to start writing those things down, because if you're so in your head of like what's quote unquote wrong with you or something like that, then you're not really able to hear those things. So I would write myself, like my win for the day is I had a client tell me that I was so nice to them and everybody else isn't. Like, you know, like sometimes it's like putting other people down, but you know, like, take it where you can get it. Like, you were so nice to me. And then I would also, in my journal, I always wrote, speaking things into existence, speaking life over myself. So I am so happy and grateful now that I have my CLS 550 all white, you know, like speaking those things over my life. Just to keep myself in the mindset of who I want to be, who I'm growing into becoming. And then after that, I would write what I was thankful for currently. So I'm so happy and grateful that I have this roof over my head. It might not be the perfect roof over my head, but it's a roof over my head. I'm so happy and grateful that I have the friends that are in my life that support me. I'm so happy and grateful that I have a coach that's willing to pray with me. You know, like I'm so happy and grateful that I have people who will pray with me, like those kind of things, and really kind of focusing on that. And then the other thing I did was add in like what my strengths were. So like, this is my strength and this is how I use my strength. But then I would also address like, this is my weakness that showed up today, or this is my like area of opportunity, like somewhere I can grow. And this is what I'm going to do about it tomorrow to be better at it. So like, that's really how I did it. Cause I really enjoy writing. So I really enjoy writing out. And cause then you can go back and say, cause I started that probably June of last year. And I went back like this year and was like, oh, like, okay, like you were nice to yourself here, and you were, you know, not critical, but able to see where you need to grow. And give yourself a tangible way to do that. Not just like be mean to yourself and then just leave it there. Like, okay, you see that, you know, maybe you yelled at somebody and you need to say you're sorry about it or something like that. What is your tangible thing you're going to do to grow tomorrow? So that's how I got through that, or how I still get through that, because, you know, it's ongoing, like your growth and your personal development and all that. It doesn't just stop, you know, it's always ongoing. Your self-care doesn't just stop. Like, just because you took your little vacation and you're like, okay, boom, self-care, right? Like, no, you have to be consistently nice to yourself. You have to consistently take care of you and like, be able to like show yourself love, like, every day, not just, you know, on Self-Care Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's important. I also think we have to offer people, we have to give other people a little bit more slack than we do. And I think I'm sometimes hard on other people because I'm so hard on myself. So again, that's the bad part of that. But I had a friend who I hadn't talked to her in a long time. We went to college. Well, she was my boss technically when I was working somewhere on one of them jobs I had in school. But we ended up becoming friends. And she was in Baltimore. She recently moved to DC, and we got together sometimes. She worked like right down the street from me, so we would go to lunch sometimes and we would talk. But then eventually she kind of like fell off the face of the earth. Like, I would invite her to stuff, she wouldn't come, or she was being real inconsistent. So in my mind, I'd be like, all right, well, whatever. Like, on to the next. I got other things going on. So she recently like called me. This was maybe like 2 weeks ago. She called me twice. So I'm thinking, again, me being hard on people was like, she probably wants something. I ain't talked to this girl in like all this time. She calling me. She probably wants something. I ain't answer it. So I didn't answer the phone. And so she texted me and was just like, you know, I just want to say I was a crappy friend. Like, you know, you made an effort for us to, you know, get to know each other better, hang out, things like that. And I was just doing X, Y, Z. I was going through some things. I just felt like I should apologize. I was like, dang, you know, that's so like mature. Here I was like, I ain't answering this phone. This probably that courtesy call before you ask for something. Like,
Not a courtesy call.
So I was like, it's like, dang, man. See, look at me. I'm being rude. Let me call her back. So I called her, and she was, so she basically elaborated on the text message, and I was like, you know, it's fine. You know, I forgive you. We all go through things, yada, yada, yada. So we ended up getting together maybe like a week later and going out, and it was just like, you know, because people really do go through stuff. I didn't know what she was going through. I was like, she being all flaky. Like, I ain't got time for that. But if I would have just maybe reached out and said, hey, is everything okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that would have been a better approach. But I think the lesson there for me was to just cut people some slack and not be hard on other people, because everybody's different. Everybody goes through things. Everybody handles what they go through a little bit differently. But something else I wanted to ask you was, let's break down what self-care is. Because I think like, and for the Black girl boss lifestyle, like self-care is this new thing. I didn't really start hearing about self-care till like you told me about it, and then all of a sudden like self-care. I'm like, what is this? What happened?
You know, I'm just a trendsetter. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Shout out to Tish for starting the self-care movement. But yeah, and even Malik posted something today about self-care. So now it's just this thing. So what is self-care? So
let me tell you what self-care isn't, and then I'll go into what self-care is. I mean, I told you guys what I think self-care is, but so I don't believe that self-care is or needs to be time-consuming, expensive, or really like feeling like you're being selfish. Like, it's none of those three things. So that's what it's not. It's not selfish, it's not time-consuming, and it's not expensive. What it is self-love. So it's just taking care of yourself however you need to, being nice to yourself. Like, I think that's the most important thing, is like self-care is being nice to yourself. Do you need a pedicure today? Yes, I do, because I need to be nice to myself. Do you need to take a nap? Yes, I do, because I've been up since 5:30 this morning grinding. It's now 1:00 in the afternoon. I think I deserve a nap, right? So like, just being nice to yourself is what it is to me, in my opinion. It also is like, you know, you can dig a lot deeper, and I do that. Like, I have the self-care summer series where you dig really deep and like creating a plan for self-care. But like, at the essence of it, like the base of it is just being nice to yourself, giving yourself some slack, giving yourself permission to do things. Like, I've helped people create self-care plans, and we had this 1.5 hour long conversation, and her plan was like, take a nap. And we had this whole conversation, but sometimes you have to get to where it is that you are kind of like not being so nice to yourself. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are eating healthy. Maybe you are going to the gym. Maybe you're getting all the pedicures and manicures you need. But like, are you taking a nap when you need to? Are you going to the movies when you want to go to the movies? And, not saying like it's always like, it's not necessarily self-indulgent, not, if you don't have the money to go to the movies all the time, what can you do for yourself that won't cost you money? Right. So like, that's my perspective on self-care, is that it does not have to be, I see on Instagram, and it irritates me a little bit, but I get it. For other, self-care is for you, it's a personal thing. Mm-hmm. But like, if this, me and you talked about this, Tatum, if it's something you already were going to be doing just because you need to get it done, like getting your nails done for some people might be self-care. For other people, it's just maintenance, right? It's like, I'm going to get, like I'm gonna get my nails done because I'm gonna get my nails done. It's maintenance. It's not really, it's the same as like it's a difference between getting an oil change in your car and getting your car detailed, right? Like when you get an oil change, that's maintenance. Getting your car detailed, you don't actually have to do that. It's not going to hurt or harm your car if you don't do it, but like you're being nice to your vehicle. So like thinking about yourself as a person, like, are you doing things as maintenance, or are you doing things as like, I'm doing this to be nice to myself and like to show up for myself and give myself some love? Like, so that's a perspective I don't think is shared a lot in the self-care conversation on social media. And self-care I learned about in my grad program, because in mental health, you're taking on other people's stuff so much, which is part of the reason I was like, I don't want to be a therapist. I got a mother that I can hang with, that kind of stuff. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to work with like working well and like work with people who have goals and dreams and like that kind of thing. And so for me, I learned about self-care early on, like, comparatively, I learned about it early on because we were really, it was instilled in us to like make sure you're doing things to kind of clear your own mind, so that you're not showing up, burdened by all these things that you might hear about. But then I had to put it into practice, right? So I knew about it, but I wasn't putting it into practice until I was in a position where I was like, so burnt out at work that I couldn't even function. Like I didn't want to answer a phone call. I didn't want to talk to clients. I didn't want to help anybody do anything. Like at home, I didn't want to help anybody. I was mad and resentful. I didn't want to talk to my friends. Like, and that's not a good space to be in. Like it's never a good space to be like resentful or like just angry all the time because you're so burnt out and you let yourself get burnt out, and that's why self-care is so important, because you can't let yourself, nobody else is going to set boundaries for you. They're just not. Like your job's not going to be like, oh, you should go home, like oh, you should take a vacation. Like your job, maybe somebody's job does that. My job does now because I work for myself. Right. But nobody at work's going to do that. Your family's not going to be like, oh, you know what? Keep your money that we asked to borrow. Right. Like nobody's going to set the boundaries for you but you. So like I really had to learn, and this is what I try to help other people see, is like setting those boundaries in your life is really important, and figuring out what works for you and that what works for you consistently. So that's why like the plan comes into, because if you have something to pull from, then you're good, right? Like, so if you already know, when I feel like this, I might need some ice cream, or during your cycle, this is when I need people to be nice to me. When that time comes, like, let me go ahead and line up my people that I need to text, right? And that's the part of having the plan, because you already know yourself well enough to like say, okay, this is what I need and this is when I need it for me. So I think that was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's okay.
It's perfect.
But I really liked what you said about it being personal, because even when you and I sat down and talked about self-care, you was like, so what do you like to do? I was like, I don't know anymore. I don't know.
Were you about to
I like to work. Like, I don't know. I'm always working and I sleep, and I'm like, I don't know.
The gym.
Like, I don't know. I'm married to what I'm doing right now. So we really so you was like, well, I'm going to give you a minute.
I'm going to drink this coffee.
And I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm going to let you figure out what you like to do, and then let me know when you're done. I was like, all right. So I'm sitting there like, I do like to get massages. Let me write that down. Getting my nails done is not self-care. manicures and pedicures is maintenance for me. It's just routine. I don't even really like doing it. I would rather them come.
Sometimes it's stressful.
They gotta come to me because I don't even want to go sit up in there with them. Like I just don't.
15 minutes, 15. You like.
See, that's why I was like, now I go during the day, ain't nobody there. I call just in case, like, is Lee ready in 20 minutes? Because I'm not sitting and waiting for nothing. But yeah, so I was writing stuff down. I was like, okay, y'all know I like wine, or if y'all follow me on social media, like, okay, I like wine, and not just the drink, but I like it just in general. I like to learn about it. I like, what it pairs with, all of the culture of it. So I was like, okay, let me write that down.
She taught me some things about it.
Yeah,
she's so fancy.
Yeah, that's right. Real fancy.
So I was like, okay, let me write that down. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to afford to do all this stuff all the time. Okay. So now it's just like, what are the little things that I like? So yes, I had my self-care day Friday. And I just went to my mom's apartment, and they have like a pool there. So like, I'm just going to go to the pool and chill, invite a couple friends with me. And that was it. I ain't spend no money. I might have spent like $11 on food because I was hungry after, but like I didn't really spend any money, and I had a good time chilling, talking, not worried about work, not checking emails, not doing anything. So I think just finding those creative ways to take care of yourself is like so freaking important, because now I even feel better because I never really work a lot on the weekends anyway. And so now I feel better on Sundays because we do the podcast, because that's when I like go to the store, get my week ready and stuff. It's not really a chill day for me. So it's like crafting out those Fridays to really just do whatever I feel like doing that doesn't involve business is like, it's been a game changer just for me mentally. And then even on a daily basis, taking that time to recognize what I did well that day, whether it's reading a book or just something to combat my craziness of being hard on myself. So I have a couple more questions for you. I know you got to go soon.
You're good.
So I want to give you like different scenarios. So we have like a variety of people who listen to the show. So what does self-care look like if this person came to you and asked what self-care looks like for them? Then you tell me what that would be. Okay. So for the person that is a college student, they're working, they're going to school, what's self-care like for them?
Oh, that's so funny because I just did my mindfulness meetups in June, and most of the people in there were college students. And so for them, I would say for a college student, one, and this is just, generalizing, but, if you don't have a lot of money to spend in college, like sometimes for me, self-care might be taking myself out to dinner, but for them, it might be like having dinner with friends and like everybody brings something, you sit down, you have a good meal together, kind of like potluck style. Or, self-care for a college student who might be working and, full time. So this was my story too. The same year I pledged, this was like the dumbest thing I've ever done. Same year I pledged, I also had 21 credit hours and I also was working. Not really a smart idea. But the way you find, in those situations when you're a busy college student, you have to make time for yourself and make yourself important. So whether it's sitting down with your friends and like having a dinner once a week, like Sunday night dinners with your friends. If you're a type of person that'd rather be by yourself, maybe you have a Netflix and chill night. You just sit and chill. You don't have to go out to the movies. Like maybe you just stay at home, stay in bed, watch a movie. Maybe self-care would be like going for a walk or doing something like that. So again, it's very individualized, but just some options for like a college student that maybe doesn't want to spend a lot of money or feels like they don't have enough time is like building it right into your schedule. It's like, okay, on Fridays after class, I take this walk to, my favorite ice cream store. I get my ice cream, I walk back and I'm happy, right? Like that's how I kind of de-stress myself from the week. Or maybe if you have to be at work and you have time in between, maybe you do something for yourself in between. Like I like to dance when I'm not feeling like myself, I'm like, let me turn on some music and dance. So make a playlist for yourself that you can listen to help you get like back in the mindset. So it can be those kind of like small, simple things. Okay. So what about the person that was you, that are in either the mental health field or they work at a nonprofit or they work at something that's their job is just heavy because of whatever it is that they do? How can they take care of themselves? So I think for people like that, or anyone who's like working and also maybe have a business or something that they're doing, one of the biggest tips is at your lunch break, actually take a break. Like, so one of my downfalls was like I was checking emails and all that while I was eating. If you don't turn that laptop or that computer off or like just don't look at it, like eat your lunch. I always make this suggestion, like, meal prepping is like trendy, but like make your meal the night before and then like don't eat at your workplace. Like go, if you work like in at a mall or something, like take your food to the food court and eat there, like eat away from your job place, just so you can kind of get your mind out of there. If that's not an option for you, maybe you can like take a walk in the middle of the day, like on your 30-minute break or your hour break, whatever your lunch is. Like maybe you can kind of just step out, take a walk, do something to kind of just ease your mind from whatever's going on from the day. Because when you're in a job that's like very hectic and very like quick pace and things, for me, it was like always a crisis happening at work. So it's like, okay, as soon as you find the minute, like take a walk if you need to. Definitely, I suggest this to anybody. When you're eating, do not be reading your emails. Get off of Instagram. Like, because you need to focus on one thing at a time. If you're trying to de-stress yourself, I know you don't. But what happens is we're trying to like multitask all the time. Yeah. So if you're reading emails, you're stressed while you're eating. You don't even realize, like your body doesn't feel full from eating or anything. So like that's just a really easy suggestion for anybody is like turn your work off for that 30 minutes or an hour or whatever your lunch break is. If you can't do it the whole time, like take 15 minutes where you're only eating your meal and not just like, borrowing through it and whatever. So
I used to eat, of course, while I'm doing other stuff on my phone, on my computer, whatever. And now because I'm at home a lot, I'll take my lunch or whatever and sit on the couch and watch like Love and Hip Hop, something ratchet. Okay. That I just like to enjoy because I prefer to watch other people's drama. So, and I'll sit and I'll just like watch something on TV and then I'm like happy. All right, cool. Let me go back to work. But it does make a difference taking that moment to separate. I'm still working on it because it's definitely not something I do consistently. But I do notice that when I do take those times to just focus on eating and chilling and not really trying to worry about what I just left and just enjoy my little break, I think that does help. So what about the person that is team no sleep? They hustling, they trying to make this money, they trying to secure that bag. Yep. They're out here trying to, no make things happen. They team no sleep. What is self-care like for them?
Listen,
she was throwing shots out.
Listen, I am a recovering team no sleep. I am in recovery from it. My mind still is like, why are you not up until 3? You're so like your body gets so used to being up till 3 and getting up at 6. Like it's ridiculous. For that person, if you're really avid or if you're really like set on staying up all night, like take a nap. Milan, I'm gonna need you to take a nap. I know that, again, it kind of sounds silly, but like it's a simple thing, right? Like it's like, okay, if you decide or maybe your job requires you to be up at 3 a.m. or something, whatever, but take a nap if you need to. So I don't know where I learned this, so this might not actually be accurate, but I learned that like taking naps in like 15-minute increments is really helpful because you don't throw off your sleep cycle. So if you need to take a quick 15, 30, 45 minutes, set your timer and take a nap if you need to. Team no sleep, because you need sleep. Your body needs time to recover. So you definitely need to get some sleep or maybe try to go to sleep an hour earlier. You got to be nice to yourself and your body and your mind because you're going to be like, because there's going to come a point your body actually can't operate off of 3 or 4 hours of sleep consistently and you're going to crash. And if the time you're going to crash is when you have a big event that you're supposed to be at and you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I want to cry. I hate everybody. Like,
it hurts so bad.
So in that case, like say you have a big event coming up or something you're promoting. If you know that thing's coming up like the week before or something, like try to build in some extra sleep time then so that your body can recover. Like, so your body doesn't hate you, basically.
And it's so funny you say that. Going back to undergrad, we were at convocation, and my line sister was Miss Bowie when I was SJ president. So she gets up on stage, and she's like, just giving her Miss Bowie speech. And out of nowhere, she says, and if you're tired, take a nap. And everybody in the auditorium, and it was like, it took 999 people. So, and it's like the opening convocation too. And everybody's laughing. So until this day, when you said that, take a nap, all I heard in my head was, if you're tired, take a nap.
We can't be both wrong.
Right, so y'all are definitely right. Take a nap. Yeah, I've gotten, and it might be bad, I get niggitis, of course.
Yeah.
I eat, and I go in my room, and I sit down in front of my computer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here for a second. And then I start leaning to the side.
See, that's how you know you need sleep. You falling asleep at your computer, at your laptop.
Yes.
You need to go lay in your bed and take a nap. Cut it out. Quit trying to go hard.
That'll be 6 o'clock. I wake up at 8:30, and I'm just like.
See, but and so for you, that probably is not really a good thing because you got things to do in that time. So, but if you would have just instead just pre-planned these naps, that's what I do. I
Came in the house, took a nap.
Right.
Woke
Come in, take a nap, take yourself a little hour nap between, work and starting your business. You'll feel so much better. Like when it's part of your plan, because then you can't be mad at yourself. You're like, because I can check that off my list of my schedule too, right? Like you're like, one more thing to check off, team nap. Like
Right.
done.
So I have a question. Can I? Okay. So for the 9-to-5ers and entrepreneurs, those that are battling, because for the longest time I was in grad school working a 9-to-5 and being an entrepreneur, what is self-care for that?
So a self-care for a person who is like, their time is a little bit limited. Maybe your self-care happens like on the weekends, or I know that's like grind time for 9-to-5ers who are entrepreneurs, but you also have to find time for yourself. So where do you build it in? Also building stuff into your routine. And this goes for everybody. It's like I said, I'm joking about the nap kind of, but not. It's like if you go ahead and build things into your routine, it makes you feel better. So if you work 9-to-5, say you have like a 45-minute hour commute, like instead of listening to music or something, like listen to something like that can kind of refill you. So self-care is all about refilling yourself. So Migos, as much as I love Migos, isn't refilling anything in me. So refill yourself, refresh yourself some kind of way in those moments where you can kind of just build it right into your routine already. Also like finding ways to really just schedule things out. Like, so if you know you are at work 9-to-5, you get home around 6, you want to start working in your business by 7:30 or 8 or something like that. Like make sure you have that time frame where you set out the time you eat, because you need to eat. Like you need to eat and you need to sleep. So if you need to take a nap, have dinner, whatever you need to do, make sure you put that into your schedule, because that's self-care too. You just have to schedule it right into your routine. It doesn't have to take up a lot of time. Like self-care doesn't have to take up a lot of your time. It just has to be something that refills and refreshes you. So I know it can be really hard to like give yourself permission to do those things when you're like, but no, I'm trying to leave this 9-to-5. Like I'm trying to grind it out, but you also have to give yourself permission to be a human and like give yourself some love and give yourself some compassion. You worked really hard in your 9-to-5, I'm sure. You just drove an hour home. Like give yourself a minute to sit down and eat. Don't look at your phone. That's another place where you like just leave your emails alone, leave your Instagram alone for a little bit. I'm not very good at this, I'm gonna be honest, but I tried to start doing like one day a week where I just delete all my social media. So I just have one day that I'm just not overwhelmed by everybody else's stuff. Like, so if you have all of that kind of stuff going on too, we waste a lot of time on social media that we could really be like resting. And you lay in bed and you're scrolling on your phone, really you could have been asleep. So really taking those kind of moments to take care of yourself when you have a lot going on. There's always time, so you just have to build it right into your routine.
And I would also say even like pre-planning, like set realistic goals or tasks for you to do each day. So don't be like, I'm gonna do 165 things today, knowing you gotta go to work. Like, set your goals for the week or the month or whatever, and just make sure they're manageable with what you have going on. Because then that's how you end up like me, like, oh, I didn't do anything today. No, you just gave yourself 2 weeks worth of work in one day. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So,
One tip for that is like the night before, write a list of like 5 or 6 things that you want to accomplish the next day, whether it's in your business, at work, or whatever. Like go ahead and write that list out, and then just give yourself a couple of things to do. Because like Tatum said, you give yourself like, oh, I'm gonna knock out 110 things after I get off work. Like, no, you're not. You're gonna fall asleep at your laptop like Milan. But so giving yourself, or if you're in school and all that kind of stuff, like what day do you do your schoolwork? I think Tiana says this, like Tuesday. She tells her professors like she only does her schoolwork on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you give her something to do other than that, she's like, well, it's not going to get done until So like maybe setting up those kind of days for yourself too. Like, okay, on Tuesdays, I only work on schoolwork. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I work on schoolwork. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for 4 hours I work in my business, you know, like giving yourself kind of that routine, and giving yourself permission to take a break when you need to. So.
So my last question, and this is going to kind of piggyback on something that me and Tish talked about this week. So the question is, what is self-care for that person who is in the awkward state of their business? So somebody posted something on social media. You know, I'm good for talking about people on the show, but trying to keep it trying to keep it to where you can't point out who I'm saying, because there's a point of why I'm saying it.
I did that a couple times.
I know, but whatever.
I won't. I peeped a couple times.
We make the effort, okay? Whether it's successful or not is something else, but dang it, we try. So somebody posted something. I'm not going to say the term because that's going to give it away, but it was basically a shot to people who are in this, I call it an awkward stage of your business, where you're growing. You may not have reached this goal yet, because this is something that just personally makes me upset.
Just say it.
When people, no, see, I'm working on not being as blunt, okay?
This is her working. This is
self-care right now, right?
She's torturing herself.
It's so hard. Oh my God. But people get to a certain level and they forget about how they got there, or they forget about the moments where they weren't in that level. And that's a big, like, just part of why we do this show, is because we reach certain milestones, of course, over the course of the time that we're here, but we're talking to you in the middle of it, like in the trenches is when we're having these conversations. But some people like to get to their $1 million mark and be like, oh, you're not doing this right because you broke. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's such a mental struggle when you're an entrepreneur. Like, it's really, really a mental struggle, because every single day you're working towards a vision that only you could see. Like, it's such a mental struggle. So for me, I get annoyed for anybody who has reached a certain level of success that try to make it seem like they got there overnight, because you didn't. And if you did, it's going to get taken away equally as quick as it got there. So y'all can have a seat with all of that. But anyway, so for that person that's in that awkward stage, that's in that position to where they're like, I'm not seeing the money I want to see right now. I feel like I have to work harder because that's the only way I'm going to get to where I'm trying to go. Like, how do I have time for self-care? Self-care ain't making me money. You know what I'm saying? Like, me taking time off, I can't take time off. I got bills to pay. Like, you know, I got to quit this job. I got all these things I need to do. Self-care don't fit with that. So, like, what would you say to that person?
I have a couple of things to say to that person. And one of them is that don't think that self-care is not important right now. Like, because what happens is you might grind it out. And I always use Rick Ross as the example for this. We was all bumping Maybach music, and then he's having seizures on a plane because he wasn't getting sleep. He was team no sleep and not taking care of himself. But like, I don't care who you are. You deserve to take care of yourself. You deserve to love yourself and be nice to yourself. I don't care who you are, how much money you have. You don't have to have a lot of money to take care of yourself, right? So in that kind of way. So for that person, I want them to know that, like, one, unfollow anybody who makes you feel not good enough or not worthy, or like you're just broke and not trying. Like, unfollow them, get rid of them out of your space, because that is not being nice to yourself. Like, that's number one. So go ahead and get rid of those people, because you want to be able to really keep empowering yourself. You know how hard you're working, and you know what you're doing. I have this little voice in my head that tells me I'm lazy every day, and I have to fight it. Like, you know, I have to fight it. My best friend will be like, I'll ask myself, would my best friend say this about me? And sometimes I have to say, Keith, do you think I'm lazy? And he was like, absolutely not. You better have a seat. So like,
I love Keith. Hey, Keith.
Shout out to Keith. But, you know, being nice to yourself in that way. So unfollow anybody that makes you feel less than, like you're not working hard enough, like you're not doing good enough because your business hasn't popped yet. So what? Like, think about, I just watched Can't Stop, Won't Stop, right? Did he?
Wait. I don't want the Christ that looks like the Phantom.
I want the Phantom. Right.
There you go. Right there.
Bars.
But you got to think about that 20-year journey. Like, he might have been grinding it out, but like, you got to think about the 20-year journey that it took to get there, to really be able to stop back and reflect, right? Why don't you stop and reflect while you're in it too? Like, why don't you give yourself some appreciation then too? So stop listening to these people who tell you that you're not good enough. Like, stop listening to these people who tell you you're not working hard enough. if you're not working hard enough, you already know you're not working hard enough. Nobody has to yell at you. And it's always the people who are working extra hard who read those posts or read those kind of things that get discouraged, and they shouldn't. So just get rid of those people out your life. Even the people who are like in your real life that are discouraging in that way. Just do your best to stay away from them. I know sometimes it's your family or whatever. Like, do your best to just like avoid those conversations with them, because you cannot keep putting that negativity in your mind. It's not being nice to yourself, and it's not going to help you get to your next level. My other thing for people who are in that like awkward stage, like you said, is to, again, not believe that self-care is for something you have to earn. You don't have to earn self-care.
She told me that this week.
Yeah, you don't have to earn it. It's like, you deserve to take care of yourself. Like, you don't have to earn it. That's why I say build it into your routine, because then it's like something else you can make yourself feel good about checking off your list, right?
Yeah.
So build it into your routine, but you don't have to earn self-care. And it's not something that you should put off like, oh, I'm going to start taking care of myself when I reach this 6-figure goal or whatever. What if your 6-figure year take 3 years and you're going to wait 3 years to take care of yourself? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so making sure that you aren't disempowering yourself and like making yourself feel like you have to earn every single thing. Like, I mean, just really stop doing that to yourself. I can't say it enough. Like, you have to stop doing that to yourself, because what's going to happen is you're not going to take care of yourself. And then all of a sudden you're going to be in the hospital or somewhere passed out because you didn't take care of yourself. Well, then what happens to your business?
Right.
You know, so making it a priority and not something that is like a lavish luxury or something. It definitely needs to be a priority in your life. And seriously, stop listening to those people who are making you feel unfollow. I do it all the time.
Faithfully.
I'm like, oh, I didn't like how you said that on that post. Goodbye.
Unfollow, bye.
Because I was like, oh, that touched me in a place that I just didn't feel good to my life. So you got to go.
Exactly. So my last question before we let you go is, tell us about your summer series.
Okay, so the Self-Care Summer Series is where I am really helping people dig deep into creating self-care plans that work for their lives. So not just, you know, the simple things. So yes, there's the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly self-care plans that I help people with, but also like emergency self-care. What is the thing that happens? So say you're working really hard on a project or something and you're just so overwhelmed you can't take it. Where's your toolkit to help you like pull from, to help you get yourself back in the mind frame? Maybe you're at work and you're like so overwhelmed, you don't know what to do with yourself. Like, what can you do for yourself right in that moment to help you bring yourself back? So like digging into those kind of things is what we're going to do. So it's a 30-day course, 30-day program, start in July 10th. So I'll give Tatum the information to share with you guys where to register and enroll if you're interested. But it really is going to dig a little deeper into self-care and like how it can work for your life. Not, you know, not like just self-care Sundays or self-care Saturdays. Like, how can you make it a part of your life, your lifestyle? And I really am a believer in it because it's something I had to do for myself. So I'm never going to like come to people giving them stuff that I don't do myself, you know? Right. And then I also have my Dream Chasers self-care journal coming very soon. Available for pre-order. But that's, and then that is where, you know, again, it's something I did. So I had the template. So why not share with other people of like, this is how you can journal to really create a life that you love and that you enjoy and that you're taken care of. Because it's not selfish. You're not a bad person for needing to take care of yourself. You don't have to earn it. It doesn't have to be expensive and time consuming. But I really want to like put that message out there because there is a lot of conversation about self-care and I love it. But are we really talking about what it really means and how it works for your life? Right. Having drinks and all that stuff could be self-care for you, or it could be a habit. It could be a habit, right? So what is it that really works for your life that really actually is going to make you feel refreshed and refilled in your life? So that's the Self-Care Summer Series and the journal and all the things I'm doing around self-care because I really want people to live their best life. And I am an avid believer that people deserve to live their best life, deserve to be full and happy and fulfilled and chase these dreams and get to it and also sleep, Milan.
Go to bed, okay?
I got it.
Yeah, so Tish, thank you so much for being here, talking to us about this. The series, y'all, is like so affordable. So y'all need to stop playing and get on this self-care train. Invest in yourself, literally. Like, I think you said it's only like $49.
It's $49 for a 30-day program. So very affordable. $49.
I spend more of that in food, okay?
You know, at brunch yesterday.
Food and parking takes that for me. So like
Parking in DC is $50.
for real. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. All the information as far as the series, where you can find Tish on social media and all that good stuff will be in the show notes. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yo.